Welcome to this episode of Behind the Docks, presented by Evan Guthrie Law Firm. I'm attorney Evan Guthrie, and today we'll be reviewing a lawsuit against soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo, filed by a Las Vegas woman, Kathryn Mayorga, who claims that she was sexually assaulted and had a resulting conspiracy against her by Ronaldo in 2009. And this lawsuit was filed in September 2018. And it names Ronaldo individually as a defendant, but also names Does 1 through XX or 1 through 20, and corporations, so businesses 1 through 20 that are unknown at this time. And some of the highlights, it just says that the plaintiff is a resident of Clark County, Nevada, so that's Las Vegas, and the defendant, Ronaldo, is a resident of the country of Portugal, so he's being sort of sued as a foreign citizen. It says the true names of the individual, corporate, partnership, joint venture defendants, Does 1 through XX or 20, Rhodes Corporation 2020 or 1 through 20, are unknown to plaintiffs at this time, but they're not limited to any individuals, corporations, partnerships that participated in the alleged conspiracy to obstruct the criminal investigation and prosecution of Cristiano Ronaldo for the sexual assault of plaintiff on June 13, 2009, and to unlawfully interfere, reduce, or eliminate plaintiff's claims for civil damages arising from the aforementioned sexual assault. It says plaintiffs sue defendants by such fictitious names, and then when their names are ascertained, then the plaintiff will amend the complaint accordingly to identify such defendants. And then it just says that Does 1 through 20 and Row Corporations 1 through 20 were agents, servants, employees, partners, or joint ventures of every defendant named herein, who are acting within the scope of course of said agency, employment, partnership, or joint venture with the knowledge and consent of all the named defendants, by conspiring to obstruct the criminal investigation and prosecution of Ronaldo for the alleged sexual assault of plaintiff on June 13, 2009, and to unlawfully interfere, reduce, or eliminate plaintiff's claims for the aforementioned sexual assault. So it's just saying that every person involved in the aftermath is they were acting together, and then they could be held liable for each other's actions. So some of the alleged facts of the case that are being presented here is it says that on June 12, 2009, the plaintiff was invited by a friend to go to Rain nightclub located at the Palms Hotel and Casino, where she met Cristiano Ronaldo. And then on June 13th, so it's kind of the same night, but earlier in the morning, sort of after hours, Ronaldo invited a group of people, including the plaintiff, to his penthouse suite to enjoy the view of the Las Vegas Strip. So it's kind of a after party after the nightclub. It says that while Ronaldo's penthouse was being visited, the plaintiff was invited to join guests in the hot tub, but she declined because she didn't have a bathing suit. It says that Ronaldo offered her clothing she could wear in the hot tub. The plaintiff accepted and allegedly followed Ronaldo into the room, where he provided her athletic shorts and a t-shirt and a bathroom to change her clothing. And it's alleged at this point that Ronaldo entered the bathroom, exposed himself, and asked the plaintiff to perform a sexual act on him. And it's alleged that the plaintiff refused and stated she wanted to leave the hotel suite. And it says that upon leaving the bathroom, Ronaldo allegedly pulled the plaintiff into a bedroom, onto a bed, and attempted to engage in sexual intercourse. And it says that the plaintiff refused to engage in sexual intercourse and covered herself in an attempt to prevent penetration. Then it says that Cristiano allegedly turned the plaintiff on her side while screaming, "No, no, no," she was sodomized by Ronaldo. And it says that sexual assault by Ronaldo caused plaintiff to suffer severe emotional bodily injuries, including but not limited to contusions, post-traumatic stress disorder, and major depression. It says that during the sexual assault, the plaintiff experienced emotional shock characterized by passivity in response to the real and perceived threat to her life and well-being by Cristiano Ronaldo. And then it says that when Cristiano completed the assault of the plaintiff, he allegedly allowed her to leave the bedroom, stating he was sorry, but he was usually a gentleman. And it says after that, the plaintiff drove to her parents' home, where she disclosed the assault by Ronaldo to her friend. And then the same day, she went to the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department and reported the incident, identifying the perpetrator as a famous soccer player, but did not give his full name out of fear of public humiliation and retaliation. And then, also on the same day, she went to University Medical Center in Las Vegas, where she took a sexual assault medical examination, and there was evidence of sodomy. It was documented and photographed. And then, at that point, she heard a nurse tell her that she would be subjected to retaliation and publicly humiliated by Ronaldo or individuals acting on his behalf as a woman who considered consensual sex, who is now attempting to extort money by falsely accusing Cristiano Ronaldo of sexual assault. So it's kind of the first time she hears of probably what's going to happen, or this is what the nurse thinks might happen, allegedly. And then within the weeks of the initial report, the Las Vegas Police Department, a detective conducted an interview of the plaintiff, during which she identified Cristiano Ronaldo by name as the individual who assaulted her at the Palms Hotel and Casino. Then at that point, of kind of repeat of what the nurse did, is that the detective reiterated prior warnings that plaintiff would be subject to public humiliation as a victim of assault, and that Ronaldo and individuals associated with him would further humiliate her by publicly characterizing her as a woman who consented to intercourse, and because of his wealth and fame, was now attempting to extort money from Ronaldo by falsely accusing him of sexual assault. And then it says that there was no further follow-up with the detective or investigation. And then it says that the psychological trauma of the sexual assault, the fear of public humiliation and retaliation, and reiteration of those fears by law enforcement and medical providers left plaintiff terrified and unable to act or advocate for herself. It says that the plaintiff's family eventually arranged for plaintiff to consult with a lawyer, and they point out his lack of experience, and the lawyer agreed to represent the plaintiff and pursue a claim for civil damages against Ronaldo. At this point, Ronaldo hired a team of, quote, fixers known as personal reputation protection specialists, quote, and it says they're kind of identifying as potentially defendants 1 through 15 and real corporations or businesses 1 through 15, hereafter referred to as the, quote, team, to investigate, monitor, and the plaintiff, her lawyer, her friends, and associates to avoid public disclosure of sexual assault. So it's kind of keeping tabs, make sure it doesn't get out there. Assess and monitor law enforcement agencies in the investigation and prosecution of the sexual assault. Develop and implement a strategy to prevent or delay public disclosure of the sexual assault. Develop and implement a strategy to prevent or delay criminal prosecution of Ronaldo for the assault of the plaintiff. And lastly, to develop and implement a strategy to diminish or eliminate plaintiff's claim for civil damages arising from the sexual assault on June 13th, 2009. So that's kind of alleging their playbook of how they were going to react to the incident and its aftermath by his quote, team of fixers. And also says the teams reported to Ronaldo that they kind of did an investigation on the plaintiff and then found out she was raised a middle-class family. Her father was a fireman. Her mother was a homemaker. She was a college graduate in journalism. She had a former work as a school teacher, a model, and she was married and separated from her husband and was openly dating. And then she had a typical social life of a young woman that was from Las Vegas prior to the sexual assault. And then afterwards, the team reported that the investigation revealed about the plaintiff afterwards that she suffered psychological injury as a result of the sexual assault. She would not allow her lawyer to identify the friend who visited a relative suite with her because she and her friend were terrified of retaliation by Ronaldo or persons acting on his behalf. She was terrified of being publicly humiliated or being identified as a victim of sexual assault. She was terrified by further public humiliation by Ronaldo or individuals acting on his behalf, accusing her of consenting to sex and falsely accusing Ronaldo of sexual assault for financial gain. And she was receiving treatment for psychological injuries caused by Ronaldo's sexual assault, was exhibiting erratic behavior, emotional instability, indecisiveness, anxiety, depression, alcohol abuse, and suicidal ideation. She was unable or had difficulty making decisions generally or specifically regarding Ronaldo in the assault. she was unemployed or hadn't worked since the assault. She submitted to sexual assault examination at University Medical Center, where the contusions and abrasions were documented and photographed. So it's kind of, they were aware there was evidence of the alleged assault. The plaintiff reported that she tried to avoid assault by screaming, "No, no, no," attempting to cover herself to avoid penetration, and was sodomized during the assault. And then after that, it says the team reported to Cristiano Ronaldo an assessment of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, the law enforcement agency responsible for the investigation of the assault, and referral of Ronaldo for prosecution. So it's kind of saying that the team of fixers had sort of in with the police and sort of found out where they were at in the investigation. It says that the police will not view the sexual assault as plaintiff as a violent crime. The police would characterize the assault as harassment, and the police would put the plaintiff's case on the quote back burner. And the quote team had a confidential source within the Las Vegas Police Department. And it says the confidential police source confirmed that the police would quote happily close their investigation file if the financial settlement between the plaintiff and the defendant was arranged. And then the team says they submitted the questions to Ronaldo, and this is kind of what he admitted or stated as his version of events of the assault or alleged assault. That he engaged in sexual intercourse with the plaintiff. That she was quote laying on the bed. I went from behind. Quote, she said no and stopped several times. Denial of the sodomy. That plaintiff's injuries were caused by another person, and the plaintiff had just regular intercourse with him. And that the plaintiffs did not follow up with the lawyer did not follow up with Las Vegas police investigation of sexual assault by plaintiff Ronaldo. So it's just saying that the lawyer didn't ask questions why they weren't investigating the matter forward or why it stalled. And then that the team of Ronaldo, knowing that the plaintiff was a quote vulnerable person suffering severe emotional injuries, was terrified of public disclosure as a victim of sexual assault and retaliation, repeatedly threatened to falsely and publicly accuse the plaintiff of consenting to sexual intercourse with the defendant in order to accuse him to obtain money or financial gain. And then if there was public disclosure of the assault from any sources, any further contact or information disclosed to assault from the police to the police or any source, or further investigation by the police of the sexual assault. The team communicated these threats to the plaintiff for the purpose and with intent to prevent delay or further contact with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police by plaintiff or friends or family. So just saying that they didn't want her talking to the police. They're trying to undermine, potentially, allegedly, to damage his credibility, the plaintiff's credibility as a victim of sexual assault, and to engage in purported settlement negotiations with the plaintiff to undermine and damage the plaintiff's credibility, to prevent a further criminal investigation of the assault, and cause further emotional distress to plaintiff by enhancing and reinforcing her sense of helplessness and vulnerability of sexual assault by being characterized as an individual making a false accusation for financial gain against a wealthy and famous person, and again to delay or eliminate plaintiff's claim for civil damages. It says at that point, the team communicated with the lawyer to reportedly negotiate a settlement of plaintiff's claims for civil damages. And again, they wanted to say that her family and friends were not talking to the police anymore and not communicating with any third parties like the media or anybody else. They falsely accused the plaintiff of fabricating the information and facts of the sexual assault to undermine plaintiff's credibility. The team threatened to publicly and falsely accuse the plaintiff of consenting to sexual intercourse in order to obtain money. And then also at that point, they failed to make any meaningful offers of settlement. And then they're also alleging that the plaintiff was incompetent and lacked the mental capacity to participate in negotiations of a settlement. There were claims due to injuries that she allegedly suffered as a result of the sexual assault by Ronaldo, and subsequently the threat to publicly and falsely accuse her of extortion of false accusations that she fabricated the facts and circumstances of the assault. And then it says the plaintiff's lawyer, having observed and commented upon the emotional instability of the plaintiff, failed to have the competency of the disability of the plaintiff evaluated, or of accommodation of such disability, or have someone else sort of step in and help her out. So it's just saying that the original lawyer, sort of dropped the ball on this as far as her regarding her emotional state and psychological state. And then it says the plaintiff's lawyer and the quote team agreed to participate in a private mediation. And then it says the plaintiff would agree to the mediation on the condition that Ronaldo be there present at the mediation so she could sort of confront him with the consequences of the result. And then at which point they did have the mediation allegedly, and then Ronaldo did not appear, and they did not tell her that he was not going to be there until the day of the mediation. And the family was not allowed the mediation, and that the plaintiff was extremely emotionally unstable, indecisive, irritable, agitated, and hypervigilant and erratic during the mediation. That the defendant's team reported the plaintiff exhibited an extremely volatile and emotional state of mind, and she was emotionally fragile and unpredictable, and the mediator spent a considerable amount of time trying to prevent her from walking out. A state of mind that they claim has made it not possible to conclude the entire settlement within the confines of the mediation. And during the mediation, the plaintiff experienced severe emotional trauma, which she characterized as re-experiencing the assault, extreme fearfulness, complete helplessness, and eventual a sense of passivity, that she would just do anything just to be able to relieve, escape, or avoid revisiting the assault by continuing the mediation. So it just goes through her sort of state of mind during the mediation. The defendant's team and the mediator knew that the plaintiff suffered severe psychological injuries as a result of the assault. And having observed plaintiff's severe behavioral problems during the mediation, they knew or should have known the plaintiff was incompetent or suffered a disability, impairing her competency to participate in the mediation, and they failed to take any steps to save or to have the plaintiff's condition evaluated, accommodated, or have a personal representative appointed to represent her interests, and to ensure that a mediated negotiated agreement be based on mutual assent of the parties approved by a court. That in disregard of the plaintiff's acute emotional condition, severe behavioral problems during the mediation, the plaintiff was incompetent or suffering a disability, impairing her competency, and concerned that the plaintiff would stop the mediation process. The defendant's team, the mediator and the plaintiff's lawyer, agreed to a partial settlement, which the defendant's team later characterized as incomplete and cryptic settlement memo. So they kind of reached a sort of a partial settlement, but they're claiming it's not complete. That the further psychological injury and trauma caused by the mediation process, which manifested itself in plaintiff experienced intrusive thoughts, increased sense of extreme anxiety and fearfulness, completed helplessness and passivity prevailed during the purported post-mediation negotiations between the plaintiff's attorney and the team representing Cristiano Ronaldo. The plaintiff lacked capacity, was incompetent to agree to any term negotiated into what they purportedly called the final settlement and non-disclosure agreement. The defendant's team asserted that the settlement and non-disclosure agreement was intended to and did prevent plaintiff, her family, or friend from speaking to anyone, including police, about the assault, and anyone associated with her to do so, she would suffer severe legal, financial consequences and penalties. And then for the team, reported that they accomplished the goal of the conspiracy to obstruct and prevent the criminal investigation of Ronaldo and plaintiff civil claims, writing, at the end of the day, claims by the plaintiff, and asserted, in this case, in our opinion, we have obtained an incredibly favorable settlement which will result in not only the release of any civil claims and in the plaintiff's choosing not to pursue a criminal case, which would have resulted in Ronaldo being imprisoned for a life sentence for sexual assault, having the catastrophic effect of not being able to travel to the U.S. To play soccer, but would also avert devastating impact which such claims would have on his personal and professional reputation, endorsement, professional opportunities. We would not have been able to pursue the plaintiff, her attorney, or the mediator of the weaknesses of the plaintiff's claims or the strength of Ronaldo's defenses had it not been for the invaluable work which was done in this case, which is not only useful for the integral and for purposes of mediation settlement, but also necessary for the overall case in terms of being able to protect Ronaldo personally and professionally under the fullest extent of the law, whether or not the plaintiff went forward with her claims. To this end, we have fully succeeded, and now that we appear to persuade the plaintiff and the plaintiff's lawyer, of our positions on the material settlement of the confidentiality and related tax issue, we anticipate being able to wrap this up and close the matter in short order. That the June 13th sexual assault and the ongoing contentious conspiracy to obstruct to prevent the criminal prosecution of Ronaldo and plaintiff's civil claims, caused the plaintiff continue to severe post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression, manifesting in difficulty maintaining employment, difficulty forming and maintaining interpersonal relationships, intrusive thoughts, abusive alcohol, suicidal ideation, difficulty performing the normal activities of daily life, and the emotional drift and being frightened. And then in 2017, they alleged a series of articles was published in Europe concerning the arrest of Ronaldo for the sexual assault of a woman in England and the sexual assault of a woman in Italy and the assault of another woman, the plaintiff, in Las Vegas. So it's she was reported at that point in the media. And claimed that the articles published in Europe during 2017 referred and quoted from documents, communications, which were exclusively possession and control of Ronaldo and his, quote, team pertaining to the assault of plaintiff and were contemporaneous to the defendant's investigations, assessments, and negotiations of the purported settlement agreement in 2009 and 2010. And that 2017, Ronaldo and his, quote, team, in furtherance of the conspiracy to obstruct the criminal investigation and a sexual assault of plaintiff's civil claims, publicly denied the sexual assault of the plaintiff by Ronaldo and falsely and intentionally characterized reporting of the assault as plaintiff as journalistic fiction, untruthful and false, and unattributed and unsubstantiated. That in 2018, plaintiff Ronaldo submitted to forensic psychiatric examination, which determined that as a result of the 2009 sexual assault, she suffered post-traumatic stress disorder, major depression, was incompetent, and lacked the capacity to participate in negotiations or enter into an agreement for settlement in 2009 and 2010, and continued to suffer severe post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression. And they claim in 2018 the plaintiff contacted the Las Vegas police stating that her desire and willingness to participate in a criminal investigation and prosecution of Ronaldo for the sexual assault that occurred in 2009 at the Palms, and submitted a copy of the forensic psychiatric evaluation of the plaintiff describing the psychological injuries she suffered as a result of the sexual assault and the consequences of those injuries. And then they claim in 2018 the plaintiff obtained from football leagues copies of documents and communications between defendant Ronaldo and his, quote, team of contemporaries to their investigation with the plaintiff, her lawyer, the police in Las Vegas, the media, and Ronaldo, and the strategy adopted and implemented to delay and prevent criminal prosecutions of Ronaldo, the strategy adopted and implemented to undermine plaintiff's credibility as a victim of sexual assault, the strategy adopted to implement, delay, diminish, and eliminate plaintiff's claim for civil damages, and negotiations before, during, and after the mediation leading to the purported agreements for settlement and non-disclosure of the 2009 sexual assault of the plaintiff. And that on August 25th, 2018, the plaintiff delivered to the Las Vegas police copies of documents and communications obtained from football leagues between defendant Cristiano Ronaldo and his, quote, team as evidence of the criminal assault of the plaintiff by Ronaldo on June 13th, 2009 at the Palms Hotel, for which the time limit of prosecution was removed by the plaintiff's reporting of the crime in 2009 pursuant to the Nevada law, and ongoing criminal conspiracy to obstruct and prevent the criminal investigation and prosecution of Ronaldo for sexual assault on plaintiff in 2009 at the Palms, including the following facts as furtherance of this conspiracy: a fraudulent misrepresentation of purpose and process leading to the agreements for which the settlement and non-disclosure, and that those agreements subjected to the plaintiff to severe legal and financial penalties and sanctions she would communicate with anyone, including the police, about the sexual assault. A libel by falsely and publicly releasing statements to the press in 2017 and 2018 that the plaintiff was not the victim of sexual assault by Ronaldo. Any such allegations were false, and a request that Ronaldo and individuals acting on his behalf of Ronaldo, the quote team, be investigated for criminal conspiracy to obstruct justice, obstruction of justice, fraud, and libel. That as a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned acts, the defendant plaintiff was deprived of compensatory damages for injuries suffered during the 2009 assault by Cristiano Ronaldo. As a direct and possible result, the aforementioned acts by the defendant plaintiff were sustained severe bodily and psychological injuries. All of some conditions may be permanent, disabling all to the plaintiff's damage in the sum of excess of $50,000. That as a direct and approximate result of the aforementioned acts of the defendants, plaintiff did receive medical and other treatment to her injuries. That said such care and treatment and continue in the future, all the plaintiff's damage of the sum of excess of $50,000. That the injuries complained of herein diminished the plaintiff's ability to capture and engage in activities to the same extent to prior as the aforementioned acts of the defendant, which is the subject of this complaint, to damages in excess of $50,000. That the aforementioned acts of the defendant were malicious, oppressive, coercive, fraudulent, intended to cause injury to the plaintiff, causing the intended injury to the plaintiff, thereby justifying the imposition of punitive damages to the defendant in a sum of excess of $50,000. The plaintiff be awarded fees, costs for this action to recover damages from the defendants. That the aforementioned acts of the defendant Ronaldo and Does 1 through 20 and Rows 1 through 20, quote, the team, tolling the running of applicable statutes of limitations, the plaintiff's civil as set therein, including but not limited to defendants or foreign nationals remaining outside the state of Nevada and the United States. The plaintiff lacked capacity. Defendants engaged in continuous and ongoing fraud as a result to obstruct and conceal the unlawful activities of which plaintiff did not discover until mid-2017, and any time related to the claim of sexual assault was removed by the reporting of the crime, and that the parties agreed to the toll of limit running any time limits on plaintiff's claims arising from the 2009 sexual assault. And then it tells the causes of action. The first one is going to be battery, and just reiterates and incorporates the prior facts. And that the aforementioned assault by the plaintiff, by the defendant, Ronaldo, on June 13, 2009, constitutes a battery of the plaintiff and a direct and approximate result thereof, and the plaintiff has suffered damages in a sum of excess of $50,000, and that the aforementioned acts of the defendant were malicious, oppressive, coercive, fraudulent, intended to cause injury to the plaintiff and cause the intended injury to the plaintiff, thereby justifying imposition of punitive damages upon the defendant in a sum of excess of $50,000. And then for the second cause of action, it's going to be intention, infliction of emotional distress. And again, it just reiterates how the intentional infliction of emotional stress was caused, and the assault, the repeated threats to falsely and publicly accuse the plaintiff of engaging in consensual sex in order to claim sexual assault to obtain money from the defendant, the continuous and ongoing fraud and conspiracy to obstruct and conceal the 2009 assault, obstruct and prevent the criminal prosecution of Ronaldo, and plaintiff's civil claims and her discovery thereof, releasing documents and information pertaining to the 2009 assault disclosed by European publications in 2017 and 18, and publicly falsely denying Cristiano Ronaldo sexual assault by the plaintiff in 2009 in response to the articles published in 2017 and 2018. And then direct approximate result, the aforementioned intentional infliction of emotional stress, the plaintiff has suffered bodily and economic injuries, all to her damages in some of excess of $50,000. And again, it's just the acts were malicious, oppressive, coercive, and fraudulent, intended to cause injury, and in causing the injury to the plaintiff, thereby justifying imposition of punitive damages upon the defendant in some of excess of $50,000. And then the third cause of action is going to be coercion of fraud. So again, it's the same facts are reasserted. And it says the defendants repeatedly and continuously threatened to falsely, publicly accuse the defendant of engaging in consensual sex with the defendant in order to claim a sexual assault to extort money from the defendant. That the plaintiff had a reasonable belief that the defendant would carry out this threat if she did not comply with the defendant's demand to settle her claim of sexual assault. And the defendant and his team falsely represented that the purpose of the settlement, negotiation, mediation, and settlement agreement was to compensate the plaintiff for injuries suffered by the assault by Ronaldo. The defendants falsely represented that the settlement agreement precluded plaintiff's communication and cooperation with the police, and anyone associated with her to do so would suffer severe financial and legal consequences. That the circumstances surrounding negotiating mediation, the plaintiff, to the extent she was capable of doing so, formed a reasonable belief that the process leading to the agreement for settlement and non-disclosure were lawful. That the plaintiff entered into agreement settling her claims against the defendant in exchange for a payment of $375,000 in non-disclosure of the sexual assault. That the team reported that they accomplished the goal to conspiracy to instruct. And then again, it just reiterates that sort of the writing where they're saying that just they accomplished their goals of making the settlement, make everything go away. And it says the defendants represented regarding the purpose of the process leading to the agreement were false, and that in furtherance of the conspiracy to obstruct the criminal prosecution or criminal investigation and prosecution of Ronaldo for assault and concealing and suppressing the plaintiff's evidence of the crime, and thereby interfere, diminish, eliminate plaintiff's current claim for civil damages arising from the aforementioned assault. The defendant's material misrepresentation of the process and agreement for settlement rendered the settlement agreement void as a matter of law, and that the concealment of the crime and destruction of criminal investigation and prosecution of a crime in exchange for money or crimes, rendering settlement and non-disclosure agreement unlawful and void as a matter of law. That the plaintiff did not discover the aforementioned fraudulent misrepresentations until 2017. In the plaintiff's discovery, defendants of torturous and fraudulent acts the plaintiff to suffer emotional stress and aggravation of severe psychological injuries she suffered as a result of the 2009 assault in excess of sums of $50,000. And then a direct approximate result of the defendant's conspiracy, fraud, and coercion, the plaintiff was deprived of recovery and compensatory damages for injuries sustained in the assault, all in excess of sums of $50,000. And again, defendants' acts were malicious, fraudulent, coercive, and aggressive. And then the fourth cause of action is going to be abuse of a vulnerable person. And so, again, as they're alleging that Kathryn Mayorga at all times mentioned therein was a, quote, vulnerable person as defined by Nevada law. The aforementioned acts by defendant Ronaldo and his team constitute the abuse and exploitation of a vulnerable person as defined by Nevada law, and as a direct approximate result thereof plainly suffered bodily and economic injuries as all her damages in a sum of excess of $50,000. Again, just the malicious, fraudulent, and oppressive and intended to cause injury to plaintiff. Fifth cause of action is going to be racketeering and civil conspiracy. They're alleging that defendant Ronaldo and his team combined to form and operate an enterprise for the purposes of engaging in racketeering activities in a civil conspiracy. In the furtherance of the enterprise, the defendants engaged in the following racketeering activities as defined by Nevada law, and to obstruct criminal investigation and prosecution of Ronaldo for sexual assault on the plaintiff, and thereby interfere, reduce, or eliminate the plaintiff's claims arising therefrom. And again, it's just saying that their activities are sort of racketeering. Sixth cause of action is defamation. Again, they're saying that the 2017 articles were first published in Europe and they referred to, quote, documents and communications that were exclusive possession of Ronaldo and his team pertaining to the assault in 2009, and then the process leading to the agreement of settlement in 2010. And that these 2017 articles are sufficient information to identify the plaintiff, and plaintiff learned these articles from third parties who identified her from the information contained therein. And that 2017, 2018, Ronaldo and individuals acting on his behalf in furtherance of conspiracy to obstruct and prevent disclosure of 2009 assault, criminal prosecution of Ronaldo, and plaintiff civil claims published responsible to these articles falsely. He claimed that they were journalistic fiction, untruthful and false, containing unattributed, unsubstantiated allegations. And again, it's just saying again this was defamation by denying these. And seventh cause of action is going to be abuse of process. Again, it's just saying alternative dispute resolution, including mediation, is a legal process recognized by protected by Nevada statute, and that they abused the process of mediation in trying to settle these claims. They were coerced and intentionally excluded the family, and they knew that she had severe problems during the mediation, or knew or should have known the plaintiff was incompetent or suffered disability. And again, it's just saying that this was all an abusive process, and that they want. And it says the aforementioned acts of defense were malicious, fraudulent, and coercive, and oppressive, and just excess of $50,000, and also punitive damages. Eighth cause of action is declaratory relief. Declaration that the settlement and non-disclosure agreement are void or voidable on the basis of incompetency, undue influence, or fraud. So again, it's just trying to saying that non-disclosure agreement and settlement are no longer good because of the fraud, and that she was incompetent to be able to act and to be able to sign it. And then the ninth cause of action, declaratory relief, declaration that the plaintiff is excused from performance under settlement and non-disclosure agreement due to the defendant's breach. It's just saying that, again, that they breached by releasing the information in the publication of articles in Europe was allegedly caused the breach. The defendants materially breached the agreement by not reading the plaintiff's letter. The defendants materially breached the agreement by making public statements regarding the assault. It says that the plaintiff contends that the defendants material breached the agreement by failing to maintain information and documents relating to the assault, agreement, settlement, in the strictest confidence. And that based on the acts of the defendant, the plaintiff seeks the court's judgment that the defendant's breach of agreement for settlement and non-disclosure excuses the release of the plaintiff from any obligations of terms of agreement and settlement and non-disclosure of the 2009 sexual assault of the plaintiff. So it just allows her to go forward with this suit by declaring that the previous breach didn't have her to go by the settlement anymore and non-disclosure. 10th clause of action is going to be negligence, and just saying that the defendant assumed that a duty of obligation under agreement and non-disclosure of the assault to maintain information documents the strictest confidence, and that the defendant negligently maintained the information, and again, they were released and published. 11th cause of action is going to be breach of contract, and alternatively, the aforementioned acts materially breached the agreement and for settlement, and the plaintiff agreed not to pursue actual damages against the plaintiff in exchange for a settlement and non-disclosure, thereby tolling any applicable statute of limitations on claims arising from the 2009 sexual assault. And then as a direct and proximate result of the defendant's material breach of the agreement for settlement and non-disclosure, the plaintiff is excused and released from her obligations thereunder. So it's just saying that she can bring this lawsuit. And then it says that the plaintiff be awarded attorney fees. And then this is going to be the end of the lawsuit, the prayer for relief. It says, wherefore, the plaintiff reserving the right to amend the complaint prior to or during the trial, the matter plays judgment against the defendants as followed: general damages, excess of $50,000; special damages, excess of $50,000; punitive damages, statutory penalties, declaration of rights set up forth above, attorney's fees and cost of litigation, interest in a statutory rate, and such and further relief that the court deems necessary under the premises dated September 24th, 2018. So that's just going to be their prayer for relief, and then again, probably potentially might lead to a higher settlement, or if it goes to trial, they might ask for a lot more, especially for the punitive damages. All right, that's going to be it for this complaint, and thank you for joining us today.